Okay, fans, we're back for another episode of You Be the Instructor. Pick out the rider's mistakes. Now, here Donna is demonstrating the exercise perfectly as she always does. I'm explaining what she's doing as she's going along. And now let's watch the first rider. This is your chance to pick out the mistakes. Granted, this is a pretty easy one. Did you catch that? Let's watch him do it again.
Donna explained to him that the idea is to not hit the cone.
And here's my analysis. You wouldn't know this, but he's got the clutch out all the way. He's going way too fast, and he's not turning the bars at all. That's pretty much it. Now, showing this from another angle, the riders are coming towards me as I'm filming them, and this is kind of subtle, so watch it very closely. Now, don't misunderstand, these riders you're seeing right now are actually above average, but they're still making some mistakes that can be corrected. Watch carefully now. Did you catch it? Here's another chance. Notice the dipping is pretty good. He's dipping from side to side as all the other two riders were as well. Now watch carefully. What did they do wrong? This rider is actually way above average, but you can watch and see what happens. I'll bet you didn't catch that. Here again, the slow cone weave, dipping from side to side, working really well. Not a problem there. So don't be looking for problems where there aren't any. By the way, the cones are about, I think, 15 feet apart at this point. Now, I could tell you all the riders made similar mistakes. And here's how I correct them. I'm walking backwards and focusing the camera on the rider, and I'm telling him to look at me because his head turns were too slow. As you see now, when they're looking at me as they make the turn, their turns are much sharper. It's as simple as that. Turning the head more, faster, and further. Now we'll move to the offset cone weave. And again, I always have Donna demonstrate it because she executes it perfectly just about every time. In fact, every time. Her speed through here is about 10 miles per hour. And this isn't the best parking lot. Once again, we're at our second choice of a parking lot because the school is still closed down. And I do have the gates kind of wide, but later on as the riders get the hang of it, I always narrow them down. And we've got the riders there in the class. We had 8 riders, and they're all watching, as they should be. Now you got to watch this closely. As I said, this rider is above average. In fact, turned out to be one of the best riders in the class, even won the best rider in the class trophy at the end. But he's still making some mistakes that could be refined. Can you catch them? I'll show you that again. And these aren't major mistakes. These are subtle.
Turn your head all the way. Look at me.
If you're a good instructor, you have to be able to spot them all and inform the rider of the mistakes. Okay, here's my analysis.
Turn your head all the way. Look
He's
at me.
cutting himself short. In other words, he's not going all the way to the cone at the end. He's also not turning his head fast enough or far enough. Now, here's a rider who was doing so well, he wanted to be challenged, so I set up the motor officer part of the offset cone weave. And he's looking good. Really, he's practiced. He told me he practiced quite a bit before he even came here, but he'd never tried the actual motor officer size offset cone weave. So now let's watch him in slow motion, because again, this is a subtle mistake. With the cones this close, you've got to really bring that bike back all the way back to the left before going to the right. It's almost a full lock. In fact, you probably will hit full lock doing that. And as you go further down the line, each time you're a little bit off with that, it gets tougher. As you see here, he can't make it through the last gate. And now we have Donna demonstrating the intersection. At this point, we still have it at 27 feet wide by 36 feet long. It does get tightened up later on once they get the hang of it. Her head turns are perfect. She snaps her head and eyes, and around comes the motorcycle. Speed again, about 10 or 12 miles an hour. Here I'm telling the riders, watch what she did, try to repeat it exactly. Of course, you got to use the techniques to the fullest. Head and eyes, friction zone, a little bit of pressure on the rear brake. Really, that's all there is. It's just 3 techniques. It's not brain surgery. There she turns her head. As soon as that turn is completed, she already looks in the next leg for that green cone where she wants to put that front tire. Now I'm telling the riders that their brain is going to tell them to go very slow. That's what the instincts say to do, to go extremely slow. And I tell them, think of your brain as a politician. What they tell you sounds good. It just doesn't work in the real world. Whatever your brain is telling you, it's actually the exact opposite that's going to work for you. A little more speed, quick head turns, snap that head, exaggerate that motion when you're learning this. And that's what I'm telling the riders here. And here I don't realize I still have the camera on as I stick it in my pocket. In case you were wondering what that was. Now let's watch this first rider coming in. And again, this is rider's average to slightly above average, but he still makes some subtle mistakes. He does make it through without hitting the cone, so he's doing something right. Now watch this rider. Did you catch that? This rider wanted to try the 18-foot, which is what he's going to try to do here. He didn't quite make it. Can you tell why? Okay, here's my analysis. This rider's got his shoulder up. That prevents his head from turning all the way, and it's hurting him. I had to constantly be telling him to keep his shoulder down. If you keep your shoulder down, it makes it much easier to turn your head and eyes. That rider, again, wasn't turning his head fast enough. It was like his head was following the tire instead of the other way around. And this rider, he's got too much speed. That's the only reason his turn was a little wide. If he was slowed down by 2 miles per hour, he'd have made it easily. Now watch in slow motion. You should be able to see this rider's shoulder come up. And again, that's instinct. That's your brain telling you all the wrong things. Whatever direction you're turning, keep that shoulder down. Watch that slow head turn. And again, he's an excellent rider, but he needs to perfect that head turn just a little bit quicker and a little bit further. Slightly too fast. 1 to 2 miles per hour less and he'd have made that 18-foot turn. But as you can see,
Come on in, get him
all
in.
the riders really improved tremendously.
I want this to look like a drill team.
I hope you
Not
enjoyed
like a
the
Chinese
segment,
fire drill.
and watch it over and over again, and you'll pick up these little mistakes that the riders make. They're not going to come out of the class perfect, but they'll come out at least 100% better than when they started, and usually better than that. Until next time.
He hates that corner cone. Turn your head.